Follow Famous and Gravy on the Wondery app or wherever you get your podcasts. You can listen to Famous and Gravy early and ad-free now by joining Wondery Plus in the Wondery app, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify.
The Care Credit credit card lets me pay over time for just about anything my dog needs, from food to vet care. But, what if, hypothetically speaking, I got a bird? No, a horse. Well, I've got good news for my hypothetical self. Care Credit is accepted at more than 270,000 locations and works for, wait for it, all animals. And the even better part is, it also works for me. I can use it for spa trips, dental treatments, and more. Care Credit offers flexible financing for all my hypothetical animals and hypothetical me.
Visit carecredit.com to apply and find a location near you, subject to credit approval.
Indeed is the all-in-one solution for your hiring needs. When it comes to finding amazing candidates quickly, Indeed's sponsored jobs feature is your secret weapon. Your job post jumps to the top of the page for relevant candidates, ensuring maximum visibility and faster results. In fact, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed receive 45% more applicants than non-sponsored jobs. With Indeed, there are no monthly subscriptions or long-term contracts. You only pay for results. In the past minute alone, 23 hires were made on Indeed worldwide. There's no need to wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/WonderyUS. Just go to Indeed.com/WonderyUS right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/WonderyUS. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.
Famous and Gravy listeners, Michael Osborne here. I've got two things to say before we start today's episode. First, we could really use your help growing the show, and there's a very simple thing you can do. Leave a review for Famous and Gravy on Apple Podcasts. If you're listening on Apple, you just scroll down on our show page, tap the stars, and write a few words. These reviews help feed Apple's algorithm and help new listeners to find our show. The second thing is, if you yourself are interested in starting your own podcast and you want to learn about how we built Famous and Gravy, we would love to have a conversation. Our email, as always, is hello@famousandgravy.com. So, two things. Please write a review, and if you're fantasizing about your own show, please reach out. That's it. Thanks again. Let's get to it.
This is Famous and Gravy, biographies from a different point of view. To participate in our opening quiz, email us at hello@famousandgravy.com. Now, here's the quiz to reveal today's dead celebrity.
This person died 2008, age 66. At Harvard, after suffering from a professor's criticism, he changed his major from English to anthropology and graduated summa cum laude in 1964.
Okay, 2008, and he was real touchy.
Yeah.
Is this Joseph Campbell?
Not Joseph Campbell. Good guess. He earned his medical degree in 1969, and he spent a year as a postdoctoral fellow at the Salk Institute for Biological Studies.
Okay, so he's some type of anthropologist, like bio person.
I love hearing people think aloud. Bio person.
Robert Coles? I'm trying to think of doctors from Harvard.
Not Robert Coles. Good guess. I like it. He used fiction to explore the moral and political problems posed by modern technology and scientific breakthroughs.
Was this Oliver Sacks?
Not Oliver Sacks, who we've actually done an episode on. It's a pretty good one. All right. His books sold in the tens of millions and almost routinely became movies, many of them blockbusters like Jurassic Park, The Lost World, and Rising Sun.
Oh, Michael Crichton.
Is it like Michael Crichton?
Today's dead celebrity is Michael Crichton.
The exploration of fears is, to me, a very important activity in terms of being able to release them. And also, on some level, which I'm not entirely clear about, it's very fun to be scared in the movies. And I think in a certain way that the function of fantasy is to let us make certain kinds of explorations that we're not free to make in real life because they're too painful.
Welcome to Famous and Gravy. I'm Michael Osborne.
And I'm John Watts.
And on this show, we choose a famous figure who died in the 21st century, and we take a totally different approach to their biography. What didn't we know? What could we not see clearly? And what does a celebrity's life story teach us about ourselves? Today, Michael Crichton died 2008, age 66. Today, I am thrilled to be joined by my friend John Watts. John joined us for the Steve Irwin episode and the Jerry Springer episode, and we decided we needed to get away from daytime TV. So, Michael Crichton, how did we land on this one?
We wanted some serious action, some thrills.
Yeah, that's true.
Thrills and chills, baby. Also, I think it was getting a little too straight on this pod for a while. Yeah, I'm here to really even the playing field.
Thank you. Question. Did you grow up a Michael Crichton reader?
Oh, gosh, yeah.
Do you remember the first book you read by him that did it for you?
Oh, baby, Jurassic Park.
Really?
Come on. Yeah.
But did you read other ones after Jurassic Park?
Oh, yeah.
What was the first one you discovered where you're like, wow, this guy's got way more going on?
For me, I just kept reading all of his books after that, and I kept thinking, man, this guy really makes me feel smart.
Yeah.
Even though I'm 13.
Yes. I actually think that's one of his great talents, is he makes you feel like you understand something, even when you don't. I'm sure we'll get into that.
I'm fully a scientist.
Well, let's just go for it. All right. Category 1, grading the first line of their obituary. Michael Crichton, whose technological thrillers like The Andromeda Strain and Jurassic Park had dominated bestseller lists for decades and had been translated into Hollywood mega hits, died Tuesday in Los Angeles. He was 66 and lived in Santa Monica, California.
I'm going to give it a compliment sandwich. They got the big things right.
Did they?
So technological thrillers is a clean and accurate phrase. I think they name check Andromeda Strain and Jurassic Park, which are arguably the twin pillars. And it rightly connects these books to sort of the Hollywood mega hits. But it's also, I would say, anodyne.
Okay.
It's so simple. It's not going to offend anyone, but it certainly isn't taking any risks.
I agree. It is a little bit lame. I like technological thrillers a lot because he wrestles with technology and science. My big head scratcher was actually the properties. The Andromeda Strain and Jurassic Park. What I like about it is that I do think that this captures the time frame really well. Andromeda Strain burst onto the scene 1969.
Yeah.
Actually, let me pause on that for a second. In getting ready for the research, were you surprised by how far back in time Michael Crichton goes?
Absolutely. I thought this guy just landed with Jurassic Park.
Right. I didn't realize Andromeda Strain went that far back and that he was a known figure in the 70s.
He's already directing.
Yeah.
Already, yeah.
You and I are of an age where he was a known figure, but I felt like his star was still rising as I was becoming aware of him as a kid. That's something I like about pointing to Andromeda Strain because it is the origin of Michael Crichton as famous figure.
Right.
And Jurassic Park, I think, has to be included in
How
the first
could you
one.
not?
How
Yeah.
you can't not. But those are not the most commercially successful. Jurassic Park, the franchise, is huge.
Yeah.
But we're missing ER in here,
Yeah.
which is kind of more of a juggernaut in a way.
They could have said Twister.
Yeah, which I totally forgot
Massive.
about. Yeah.
Oh my God, I totally forgot about that too. ER.
Westworld is a little bit more, obscure. But here's, I think, the point I'm trying to make. If you were going to say, this man who you know for his books, these are probably the two right books. If you were to say the man who you know for being so successful, how much money he made or the franchises he built, I would have probably thought about ER. The way I read this first line is it is more crediting his creative output than his commercial success.
Yeah. They're sort of taking a little bit of a bookend here, but I do think it's lost a lot of the other important details.
All right. So where did you land for a score?
I landed at 5.
Oh, wow. That's a lot lower than I would have gone with.
I think it misses the fact that he was one of the only people to simultaneously top the charts in film, books, and television.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Come on. It's accurate, but it needed a little bit more awe for me, a little more, dare we say, chaos?
Yeah. Nicely done. Yeah.
Yeah. I just think part novelist, part systems theorist, and just such a great phenomenon as a writer.
This is a weird comparison, but if you substitute a few words in here, this looks a lot like Tom Clancy's first line of the obituary, right? Which is Tom Clancy.
Is that a read?
No, which is kind of a ding because Michael Crichton is more impressive in a way than Tom Clancy. He's more diverse in terms of the books, in terms of his involvement with the entertainment industry. And all we're saying is he wrote books that were made into movies. 5 is a little lower than I was going. I was going 7. Which is maybe a little too generous. Technological thrillers I like quite a bit. It does underplay a lot, and it's not taking any risks. You know what? No. It's a 6. It's a 6.
Okay, I could go with 6.
So, all right, let's go ahead and get into it. Category 2, 5 things I love about you. Here, John and I will develop a list of 5 things that offer a different angle on who this person was and how they lived. I'll kick us off. I couldn't come up with the right word here. I was talking with Allison, my wife, and I was like, well, he's kind of unbelievable. His output is insane. She had forgotten that ER and Twister were also part of it. It's not just Jurassic Park. He's also an alien. I mean, this whole Harvard medical doctor who, after he finished his degree and did a postdoc, decided, I'm going to go all in as an author. He's also kind of an alien because he's 6'9".
Yes.
I mean, you imagine seeing him and knowing the intellect and, oh, this was a Harvard-trained doctor. Like, this guy is unbelievable. I went with untouchable. Technological thriller, like, captures a lot, but it misses some other stuff. He's not just sci-fi.
No.
There's also The Great Train Robbery and Disclosure, Rising Sun.
Keepers of the Dead.
Yeah, I mean, his interests are very eclectic and exciting, and you put all of that in this 6'9" figure who has a medical degree from Harvard, and you're like, who the hell is this guy? He's sort of unbelievable as a figure. So that's my thing number 1.
I love that. I think he began writing while in medical school to pay for medical school.
To cover the bills.
Right. Yeah. At night when he had that
crank out a few novels.
That free time in medical school, there's lots of that. So no big deal.
I've always thought the guy who's in medical school, of course, gets no sleep, works constantly, nearly ruins himself. But there's no way that a guy can write as much as you did and be in medical school. Can you live without sleep?
No, but I discovered in certain ways that I could live without medical school.
It was one or the other.
Right.
Yeah.
So that you can, if you look at my grades, I think you can see where I did my writing because they sort of went along and there was a big drop.
Are you intimidated by him?
Absolutely.
I'm really intimidated
Can you
by him.
imagine meeting him in person?
No. I think that's what I'm trying to get at. He's superhuman. One of the things I feel like we do on Famous and Gravy is humanize people. He's hard to humanize for the height alone. You know, the only other time you see 6'9" people is at the basketball stadium.
Wherever I go, tall jokes. Actually, once I broke my leg in Hawaii and I had to go all the way back to Los Angeles to have surgery in a wheelchair. And so going through all these airports in a wheelchair, I had this amazing experience of seeing what the world was like for everybody else.
So just everything about him is kind of unbelievable. Like, how do you bring this figure down to earth?
George Clooney said almost the exact same thing when Michael Crichton died. It was just that he was just a force.
Okay, so what did you have for thing number 2?
Intelligent paranoia.
You're saying he's paranoid?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, this was me going back to my 13-year-old brain to say, when I was reading his books, I felt like he allowed you to feel both intelligent because you were learning about these complex topics.
Totally.
In technology, in theory, but he made it
Math.
God, yeah.
Like
chaos theory.
The way chaos theory is written into Jurassic Park, the book, like I remember feeling like I got it.
Genetics,
right,
too.
He walks you through and makes you feel smart.
Yeah, and I think he has the ultimate online video tutorial of all time in Jurassic Park.
Sometimes, after biting a dinosaur, the mosquito would land on the branch of a tree and get stuck in the sap. This fossilized tree sap, which we call amber, waited for millions of years with the mosquito inside until Jurassic Park scientists came along. Using sophisticated techniques, they extract the preserved blood from the mosquito and, bingo, dino DNA.
I make learning materials for a living.
Yeah.
And like looking at, that's the epitome of the best video tutorial ever.
He is an astonishingly skilled science communicator.
Yes. I remember going to school and, putting my lunchbox up on the shelf and my coat on the coat hanger and then explaining gene editing to my friends, thinking that I had, figured this out.
Yeah.
We had climate modeling and state of fear, nanotech and prey.
Even like epidemiology with Andromeda strain, on and on. He will take a subfield within science, build out a paranoid fantasy around it, and tell a freaking awesome story.
And I think that's the other thing. The paranoia piece is it's like this built-in moral dilemmas. It often explores human hubris,
right?
Unintended consequences, ethical blind spots.
See, this is what I think great science fiction does. It does get at humans versus technology, or humans versus nature, or humans and the planet, or whatever. Like, it's wrestling with the big questions of humanity and civilization through story. So your point about paranoia is actually well taken, because I feel like it is approaching and confronting and reckoning with big fears through narrative.
He also just, for whatever reason, his books were cinematic.
Yeah.
It's like cinematic prose.
Even when they're poorly adapted, right? Like, a lot of his books should have been better movies.
Yes.
Jurassic Park obviously translates well in the hands of Spielberg. There are others that are okay adaptations, but it should have been all blockbusters.
Yeah, not Congo.
Not
Jerry Bruckheimer.
Not 13th Warrior. Sphere was a disaster. It was so disappointing, right?
Another thing that his chapters were short. That's another thing for a kid. I love that about his writing, and I just thought, what a cool writer in terms of how he wrote, what he wrote about, and I think to your point too, it was a running theme for him. This idea of that, and paranoia is a negative term, but I think that was his core purpose, to look at life with some skepticism, or human nature with some skepticism. We build these technologies and therefore they're flawed because they're built by humans.
Yeah. All right. So that's a great transition to my thing. Number 3, tech support. You do feel smarter. We are all a little bit more educated on genetics, on evolution, on epidemiology, on a lot of things as a result of Michael Crichton. Even medicine and ER, like, you come away feeling, I get it now more. So he's sort of a tech support guy, but it actually goes beyond that, because he was an early adopter of computers. You realize before Amazon came along, he had a computer game, and it called Amazon.
I do remember. Reading that.
In 1984. And he ends up writing this book, Electronic Life. I heard him in an interview say, the reason I wrote this book is because I got involved in a software company and nobody was buying computers, and I was trying to talk everybody into it. He was like trying to do computers for dummies in the early days before personal computers had been widely adopted. And there's a hilarious interview where he's talking with Merv Griffin, and Merv Griffin's like, you used the word processor. Can you explain what that means?
What is a word processor? Do you talk in a machine and it writes your book?
No.
Oh.
A word processor looks like a typewriter, but it has a screen instead of a sheet of paper. And when you type, the words appear on the screen.
Right.
And they are just electrical impulses on the screen, which means that you can move around on the screen and change what you've written, pull blocks of text and put it elsewhere. You have complete freedom.
Michael Crichton is there for tech support. He seems like he knows everything.
Yeah.
And it's enviable. It's a skill I wish I had sometimes. So it's a Famous and Gravy thing that way. Okay, that's my number 3. What do you have for number 4?
Stillness in Chaos Theory. For a guy who wrote some of the most paranoid fiction in the 20th century, I think Michael Crichton, from his book Travels, which is, you mentioned,
kind of an autobiography.
Autobiography, strange, vulnerable.
Yeah.
It was sort of like his Eat, Pray, Love, if you will, everyone.
It totally is.
A little self-indulgent, but...
No, but it's actually
underrated.
a good book.
Underrated.
It is. And I had read this years ago, and then I went back and thumbed through it. But where are you going with this Stillness and Chaos?
Yeah, I think in this, he describes a 2-week meditation retreat in California in the desert.
I think it was with a doctor turned sort of Eastern medicine type.
Shaman,
The shaman, yeah.
And he came back with this totally different view of himself.
Right. It was like energy work and auras and all kinds of new age stuff.
Sufi mysticism, which emphasizes self-purification, inner transformation through practices like chanting and poetry, energy healing, and past life regressions.
It is the thing about that book. It's right at the edge of woo-woo and pseudoscience. But some of it, I'm like, actually, I'm kind of like energy work. I'm sort of interested in that. Auras, I kind of believe in. Psychics come up in the book, and I don't really exactly believe in this, but I also think that there are perceptual channels that we're not aware of in other people. And
Absolutely.
So, maybe there's something to it. And that's what this book has.
And I think that's also really the key point here too, is he's saying he didn't necessarily believe in them all, but because he wanted to know what else might be true beyond his sort of scientific brain, he explored it. And I think that's so great. And there's something I like about all religions and spiritual matters.
Right.
I can find things that I attune to, like you just mentioned. It just also shows me that he was open to investigating. He did not exert contempt prior to investigation.
Good way to put it.
Close off his mind.
Yeah.
And that I think is very important, especially when you have such a scientific mind like he did.
I completely agree, John. And I mean, I actually even like the fact that he integrates his literal travels around the world, his scuba diving and Kilimanjaro. And,
kill me.
Trips to, oh, really?
Oh, God. I don't want to hear it. That's like showing people photos of your vacation. Ugh. Nobody wants to hear about that. Go away.
Oh, shit.
But the other stuff I liked.
Yeah. But this to me, actually, the way you're describing it, for me, captures a really important difference between religious conversations and spiritual conversations. If you find yourself in a conversation about somebody's religion, it almost always feels defensive. It's like picking apart all the things that are wrong, all the things that don't hold up, whereas a spiritual conversation tends to be constructive, generative, rather than deconstructive. It's more like, I can agree with that, or I could see how that could work for you, or I'll entertain that possibility. Right? There's an open-mindedness.
It's less dogmatic in that way.
And I mean, I want to have those conversations with people whose belief systems I disagree with here. And I think Michael Crichton in this book, and to your point about chaos and meditation, is that how you said it?
Stillness and chaos.
Stillness and chaos.
Yes.
I think that's an excellent number 4. Okay, I'll go ahead and take number 5. He's my secret hero.
Oh,
yeah. I mean, I actually did not know that before I got into the research. I think I really, for a while, John, tried to model my life after his. So, I have an advanced degree from an elite institution.
Ooh, tell me more.
Oh, God
don't be
almighty.
shy, Michael.
Look, I always feel fucking weird
the
talking
world
about
wants
this.
Oh, come on. Don't be like those people who go to
right,
Harvard.
so
I went to school in Boston.
Well, I don't know how to talk about it without sounding douchey.
You're not going to sound douchey.
All right, I got a PhD in climate from Stanford. And then towards the end of that degree, I discovered podcasting, and I've been doing that for the last 15 years. So I had this background in science from a top-tier university and turned towards creativity and didn't realize it, but I've been trying to follow the Michael Crichton playbook. Obviously, I'm not 6'9". Obviously, Hollywood hasn't called me yet, and I don't entertain the possibility that I ever will, the kind of success he's had. But I do like, 1, the science and creativity nexus. 2, I kind of love the commitment to sitting in an academic environment for a long time. Universities can be really great places to sort of, stew in the mind. And then I actually want to, this is going to get even more awkward, I think. I want to talk a little bit about Michael Crichton's awkward turn towards climate skepticism, because I don't know where else to talk about it in this episode. If people don't know this, I mean, this is a major, I would say, stain on his legacy for a lot of people, because he's pretty progressive and intelligent and on the money with a lot of things in terms of addressing technological fears and addressing threats of nature and so forth. He becomes a climate skeptic in the mid-2000s. Actually, it may even trace before that, but he's got this book, State of Fear, that is all about why global warming is wrong. Here's where I'm at with that book. 1, it is pretty easy, actually, to go through line by line and say, Michael Crichton, you're wrong here. You're wrong about the urban heat island effect. You're wrong about how you're characterizing the consensus. Like, they're point-by-point things that I disagree with. He's what you might describe as what they sometimes call a lukewarmer. Have you ever heard that term?
Heard that term before. I mean, I can deduce what it means.
What would you think?
Yes, there are, but it's not as impactful as we imagine it to be.
Yeah, I mean, he even, in that interview with Charlie Rose, says,
I absolutely believe that warming is occurring, humans are involved, and it's going to continue for the next 100 years.
Then what did you say that got everybody so upset at you?
I'm not a catastrophist. And I said one other thing, too. I said, I think it is not likely that carbon dioxide is going to prove to be the primary driver.
Where he's really wrong is how much warming that's going to mean and how consequential that's going to be. So he is absolutely downplaying the threat of climate, and he's way off. But I do think that he makes one point that's actually really valid, which is he says, I'm not a catastrophist.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I think is so hard, has always been hard about conversations around climate, is that the effects of climate change are pretty diffuse and are entangled with a whole bunch of other environmental concerns.
Right.
If you are worried about water resources, if you are worried about extinction, if you're worried about land use and agricultural output, any of those things, climate has its fingerprints on there, but it's not the only thing driving those changes.
Sure.
And there is some validity to his point that maybe we are racing towards a story of global civilization collapse because we are attracted to those kinds of stories as people.
Human beings, they line up for the catastrophe. They're ready for it. They're ready for overpopulation. They're ready for resource depletion. They're ready for whatever it is. We're ready for bird flu. I mean, it's going to wipe us all out.
Bird flu is not a problem either?
It's a potential problem. Could be a very serious problem.
Yes, I thought so.
Yeah. But I mean, people they're ready. They're excited. They're excited about mad cow. I think it's for example, I've done this as a sort of test. Sit down at a dinner party and you say, the world is coming to an end. We have the most horrible things, and you get immediately the aroused attention at the table. Alternatively, you say, you know what? Basically, everything's good. The world's getting better.
Nobody cares.
No, they get angry, or they turn away. It's not what we want to hear. We want to hear disaster.
He is raising a good point. He's just doing it very, very poorly. One of the reasons I feel like I've had a hard time talking about Michael Crichton for the last 15 years is because of this very weird turn right before his death.
Yeah.
Like, had this not happened, had he died in 1999, hit by a bus, like, it'd be all praise, But these last 7, 8, 9 years are like, Michael, what the fuck?
Do you think he knew it was going to have that impact?
Yes, I do, actually.
He knew he was stirring the pot?
He had people say, I heard him say in that Charlie Rose interview, you're going to get flayed for this, and he felt like he had to do it. And this is like, okay, so you're arrogant.
I thought, you know what, I'm not writing this. Doesn't matter. I'll, as you said, keep my opinion to myself. I started to work on something else, and I felt like a coward.
And the thing is, this stands in contrast to everything else we were talking about a second ago in terms of tech support, in terms of science communicator.
Yeah, intelligent paranoia.
Yeah. It's like, I think he is trying to call into question our emotions and our sentiment, but he does it by exaggerating the uncertainties in the science and by cherry picking.
Mm-hmm.
And so tactically he's wrong, but I actually think emotionally he's got a point.
I think he had a real fear of human beings being seduced by a narrative.
Yes.
I think that was
that is fair.
That's fair. Fear is a great moneymaker.
Yeah.
So I think he seemed to have a massive aversion to that. The way he executed this through that book was not great.
There's like an old man stubborn quality.
There sure was.
Again, it stains his entire legacy.
Yeah.
To me, right? I mean, I think that because he all made us feel smarter, it's so like, you know? Let me say one last thing about climate, John, because I do think, I have so much to say on this.
Let it rip. Yeah. You are a scientist.
No, I'm not anymore. And actually, that's kind of the point. In as much as he's my secret hero and I see myself in him, I stopped being a scientist 15 years ago. And even when I was, any scientist only ever has a narrow sliver of the story.
Of expertise.
Right. And this is, I think, where Michael Crichton strays, is that because he's been able to know so much about a lot, he thinks he can know everything about anything. That's arrogant. And a lot of academics fall into that trap.
There's a point where you do kind of have to stay in your lane.
And it's hard to know where that is if you're 6'9" and brilliant. Okay, so let's recap. Number 1, I said untouchable. He's an alien. Number 2, you said
intelligent paranoia.
Love that. Number 3, tech support. Number 4,
stillness in the chaos theory.
Stillness in the chaos. And number 5, my secret hero, with some caveats.
Yeah.
Okay, let's take a break.
The HBO original series, The Gilded Age, is back. And so is the official companion podcast.
Are you curious about how they brought Gilded Age New York to life?
I don't understand. Which bit is not clear? None of it is clear.
Want to know where the writers branched off from history?
Well, when you've set your mind on a thing, no one can stop you.
I take that as a compliment.
Watch or listen to the official Gilded Age podcast wherever you find podcasts.
There's some incredible TV coming out of the UK right now. Brits just do it differently. The accents, the wit, the scenery, the devastating one-liners disguised as compliments. It's all streaming on BritBox. They have the best mysteries, dramas, comedies, and seriously addicting originals like Outrageous, based on the true story of the Mitford sisters. They were kind of like the Kardashians of the 1930s, wealthy, audacious, chaotic, wildly opinionated, and always making headlines. And chances are you've never heard their story. It's stunning. It's jaw-dropping. It's very British. So check out Outrageous. It could be your next favorite. Don't miss Outrageous, streaming now only on BritBox.
Category 3, One Love. In this category, we each choose one word or phrase that characterizes this person's loving relationships. First, we will review the marriages and the kids. 5 marriages for Mr. Michael Crichton. First one to Joan, 1965-1970. Michael was 23, divorced at 28. Second one, Kathleen St. John, married at 36, divorced at 38. That didn't last long. Susanna Childs, married at 39, divorced at 41. Also didn't last long. Number 4, Anne Marie, married at age 45, divorced at 61. Hey, nice 16 years in there. One child in there, Taylor and Crichton. And then number 5, Sherry, married at age 63, and Michael Crichton died at the young age of 66. And there was a son, John Michael, born after Michael Crichton died. Wow. You have something good?
Yeah, I don't know if it's good, but I've...
What do you got? What do you got?
I got my favorite line from Jurassic Park.
Hold on to your butts.
Okay. He has chain-smoking marriages.
He's got that cigarette hanging out of his mouth, ready to reboot.
Samuel L. Jackson, no, the way that cigarette bobs in that, yeah.
It's so iconic.
It's like, hold on to your butts, though. That's what
hold on to your butts, ladies, is what I'm saying. This guy looked like, I think on the outside, looked like somebody who would be a dreamboat.
Yes. Well, and the doctor thing.
Oh,
and
the doctor thing. And the
6'9".
The money was rolling in,
Totally.
In Santa Monica.
What a catch.
What a catch.
And he was caught many times.
Oh, yeah.
And then released.
Catch and release, baby. I bet the beginning is fire. I bet that's why I think hold on to your butts, because I bet he's getting into it.
Yeah.
He's like sending the
Let's
the
go
love
to
bomb.
Tahiti for the weekend.
Oh, come on now. Yeah. Oh, I love you so much.
I got to check. Who wants to go to Paris
and
right
then
now?
He's got to write a book, and then you don't see him for 2 months.
Yeah, right. He would completely shut himself off in a tiny room that he had to duck into like a hobbit hole to like bang out a novel.
He worked on those novels like it was a more than 9-to-5 job. I mean, I think I read somewhere like as you got closer to the end of the book, he would wake up earlier and earlier. So sometimes he would only get like 2 hours of sleep.
Which is cool. I really love that, but
So
it is
excited.
absolutely coming at the expense of interpersonal relationships.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. He's going to be like, what groceries?
Okay.
What oil change? I don't know what you're talking about. Can't imagine him being a good partner, but
obviously not.
But take your ride, but let him go.
Okay. Let me give you my metaphor. I said stacked Petri dishes. So
gross.
Kind of, yeah. So each marriage, I think, is its own little biological experiment. In a Petri dish, the conditions change, the variables are tweaked, but it's the same results. Blurry glass, do I see the right thing here? I don't. I think there's a lot of messy notes. There's a lot of complicated things after death. Like his estate was not sorted out. His son-to-be was not identified in his will.
Not great documentation.
Not great
data management.
And in the end of I don't know if you've been in a lab that has a bunch of Petri dishes. They kind of just stack up in the corner and they're sealed off and they're kind of discarded.
Yeah.
So stacked Petri dishes.
He's got some stacks.
Metaphor.
He's got stacks of ladies.
Yeah. And it's, I don't know if I want to say gross for a man with his talents and with his intellect. And I also think heart and compassion. I think he is introspective. I mean, that comes out in Travels. He's no damn good at this piece.
Yeah. He probably could have done a little bit more of the energy work.
Exactly. Yes.
To kind of smooth some of this part out.
And there's a self-centeredness.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's living the introvert's dream. I don't need anybody to make my coins.
That's exactly right. He is living the introvert's dream. That's a good way of putting it. Speaking of making coins, let's move on. Category 4, net worth. In this category, John and I will each write down our numbers ahead of time. We'll then talk a little bit about our reasoning, and then we'll reveal our numbers to see who's closest. And then finally, we'll place Michael Crichton on the Famous and Gravy net worth leaderboard. I'm imagining quite a bit of money here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like Jurassic Park, the franchise, he and Spielberg, they go back, by the way. They knew each other in like the early 70s.
Oh, yeah, they were buds.
Yeah. But I mean, one thing I didn't realize is that he's not just an author. I didn't know about this whole... He wrote and directed Westworld, the original with Yul Brynner. He directed Great Train Robbery with Sean Connery. He was more inside the entertainment industry than like Stephen King, for example, who Stephen King has directed one movie, Maximum Overdrive with Emilio Estevez.
Bless his heart.
I love that movie because it's got an AC/DC soundtrack. But so Stephen King has this relationship with Hollywood in that his books get adapted, but it's not the same sort of level of involvement.
God, no.
And not the same sort of business acumen that Michael Crichton has. All of this is to say
he had some.
Must have had big money. And so anyway, let's go ahead and reveal. John Watts wrote down $30 million.
Michael Osborne wrote down $300 million.
Okay, the actual net worth number for Michael Crichton: $400 million.
$400 million?
Yeah, you were way off. Something I've learned on the Famous and Gravy journey is producers do very, very well. Like orders of magnitude better than directors who do orders of magnitude better than actors. Yeah. And with something like Jurassic Park, which I think it came just shy of $1 billion. So let's place him on the Famous and Gravy net worth leaderboard. So at $400 million, he's all by himself. He's right below Queen Elizabeth.
Okay.
and right above Kenny Rogers. Kenny and Tina Turner are actually tied for 6 at 250. Top 5, though, Michael Crichton. Well done. $400 million.
I feel really poor.
Yeah.
Like I was like, $30 million. Oh my gosh.
Well,
he's like Uncle Scrooge diving in those bank vaults.
I feel very short. Let's move on. Category 5, Little Lebowski Urban Achievers.
They're the Little Lebowski Urban Achievers.
Yeah, the Achievers.
Yes, and proud we are of all of them.
In this category, we each choose a trophy, an award, a cameo, an impersonation, or some other form of a hat tip that shows a different side of this person.
Okay, I have a spicy one. In 1994, People magazine named Michael Crichton one of the 50 most beautiful people in the world.
I saw this. Did you see he's a very attractive man. Did you see who was number 1 that year?
No, was it Brad Pitt?
No, Christian Laettner of Duke. Basketball. Another very tall man. Apparently people was into tall men this year.
All right. Yeah. I mean,
but Michael Crichton's an attractive man.
He's hot, yes.
Is he hot because he's intelligent too? Or
I think standalone hot. So if he was dumb as a rock, he's
still a smoke show.
He could still get it. Yeah.
Okay.
I would not kick him out of bed for eating crackers.
Got it.
I mean, that is all like frosting, like the Ivy League education, the millions of dollars, the movie, all of that's aside. This guy, I remember even when I looked at the back, they had the author on the back, the book jacket. When I was a kid looking at that and being like, okay, damn.
Oh, well, hello.
Oh, I think I just...
Has he written other books?
Yeah. It's like, did I just discover something about myself? I'm pretty sure I did.
Is that right? Was it Michael Crichton opened some doors for you?
Yeah, I think maybe he did. But yeah, I think People magazine knew. They said, they said science fiction, more like science friction, baby. Ooh, get in these cookies.
Good.
He's fine.
Okay. I'll go ahead and give you mine. I'm going to say CGI pioneer. He is the very first director to use CGI.
In 1973, when I was directing my first film, a movie called Westworld, I wanted to do a special effect that required digitization. So we went out to effects houses and nobody knew what we were talking about. They kept saying, don't you want to solarize? I said, no, this is something called digitization. You have to turn the image into a series of ones and zeros and then manipulate it in the computer. Nobody had a computer, nobody knew what we were talking about. Finally we went to Jet Propulsion Laboratory and they said that they could do 2 minutes of film for us for $1 million and it would take 9 months. We explained that the whole movie was going to cost $1 million and we had only 9 months to make it. And actually, finally what happened was that a man named John Whitney Jr. did it at night on some computers that were owned by a company called Information International. And I think that was the first use of digitized film in a motion picture.
He's using computer technology in the early 70s. It's a sort of almost like Terminator shot. It's like what the robot sees that's been digitized.
Okay.
He's an early adopter. I admire that. To your earlier point about paranoia, he is both freaked out by science and unintended consequences, but he's also wanting to understand it by becoming a practitioner and a user. And that I admire. So yeah, first director to use CGI, first director. And I think it gets to what I was saying a second ago about like, I'd never thought of like Michael Crichton, the director, but for people older than us, that was an association they had with him. Oh, as an author turned director.
Up until Jurassic Park, he directed most of his films. Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's kind of wild.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on. Category 6, words to live by. In this category, we each choose a quote. These are either words that came out of this person's mouth or was said about them. I'll kick us off. This was maybe too easy, but I do think the Ian Malcolm in Jurassic Park, the Jeff Goldblum character, he has some awesome lines, and they're awesome in the book, too.
You're implying that a group composed entirely of female animals will breed?
No, I'm simply saying that life finds a way.
Life finds a way. I love that.
So
I do
good.
love that. He also says in the book, in the information society, nobody thinks. We expected to banish paper, but we actually banished thought.
Mm-hmm.
He is expressing some of his concerns about the coming internet revolution as early as the mid-90s. I watched a TED Talk he gave, that early TED Talk I mentioned earlier, where he says something about how there is this thing where we all fall in love and we're all excited and we get these utopian ideals and we don't think of the unintended consequences. Maybe I'm sounding old fogey here, but nobody thinks in the information age. Like, what knowledge, especially in the age of AI now, like, what are we expected to...
He's turning in his grave with the AI.
Right?
And
I think, it's easy for my paranoia to spin out, but we didn't banish thought. But I guess what I read in here was the power of pen to paper. We haven't banished paper. And lately I've been on this kick where paper really matters. I believe in writing things out longhand. This came up in the Hunter S. Thompson episode. One of the things I love about Hunter S. Thompson is letter writing. The act of writing forces you to organize your thoughts. I think that we're at a moment in time where we need to make a full-throated case for that craft when it's so easy to dictate and when it's so easy to outsource your thinking to ChatGPT. So those were my words to live by. What do you have?
I had something somewhat similar. This is another quote from an interview. The greatest enemy of knowledge is not ignorance. It is the illusion of knowledge.
God, you hear that and you're like, yes, Michael, and you're wrong about climate, but yes.
Which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, it is.
Because
it applies to him and it's true.
Yeah, and it's true. And it was, listen to yourself, Michael, maybe a little bit more.
So unpack that quote for me a little more, John.
I think this reflects his deep skepticism toward accepted norms and his emphasis on critical thinking and independent thinking. If you see something that is an accepted norm, question it.
I just don't know how far to go with this anymore, right? I feel like I was in a conversation with somebody whose politics I don't agree with the other day. Ooh. I mean, like really don't agree with. And he was singing the praises of the institutional gatekeepers have now been exposed. And this is the balance that I feel like I don't know how to get back to, that you do need safe, private conversations where skepticism can be expressed and explored, but also resolved. And in a completely open information ecosystem, like where there's no such thing as a private conversation, that last part of safe but contained skepticism, that is what I feel like we've lost. And that's fundamental for science. You need to be able to say, I don't know if I agree with this. I need the freedom to call BS. What has happened today is that everybody is able to exploit uncertainties and tell their own stories and make up their own reality.
Right. I think that's really important to say, that it does take one-on-one conversation in some cases to do this. Or
protected space, even if it's like 20 people talking, right?
Right. A protected space is a better way to put it. I think it's important to have that, but now everything is on a grand global stage, and there's so much opportunity for that here.
So I'm sort of like trying to apply the famous and gravy way of thinking to Michael Crichton. I really don't know where this all leaves me, because my deference to somebody else's expertise is a more emotional process than I'd care to admit. You know what I mean? It's very easy to spin out that I don't know how to do this anymore, and like where to go for trusted knowledge.
Absolutely. Yeah. It used to be so clear cut. You say, oh, this person has the appropriate letters after their name. So
Right.
we'll listen to them. And now that's sort of been washed away.
And now I heard a podcast where this man said this thing, and I totally have changed my mind about everything.
Right. John Watts said that Michael Crichton was hot, and now I believe it. I believe every word he said.
For example, I meant other podcasts.
I know I was talking about me. Yeah.
So what was the quote one more time?
The greatest enemy of knowledge is not ignorance. It is the illusion of knowledge. So I think that the illusion of knowledge, I think, is just this idea of, like, how can we sort of stay humble and say, maybe I don't know.
This is the thing, is that it is such an important quote. It's just, it's sort of ironic how much I feel like it twists around his legacy.
Right.
You know?
Right. Yeah. Which I thought was interesting when I picked it out.
That's a good one.
Craving your next action-packed adventure? Audible delivers thrills of every kind on your command, like Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir, where a lone astronaut must save humanity from extinction, narrated with stunning intensity by Ray Porter. From electrifying suspense and daring quest to spine-tingling horror and romance in far-off realms, unleash your adventurous side with gripping titles that'll keep you guessing. Discover exclusive Audible originals, hotly anticipated new releases, and must-listen bestsellers that hook you from the first minute. Because Audible knows there's no greater thrill than the one that speaks to you. Discover what lies beyond the edge of your seat. Start your free 30-day trial at audible.com/WonderyUS. That's audible.com/WonderyUS.
Get this, adults with financial literacy skills have 82% more wealth than those who don't. From swimming lessons to piano classes, us parents invest in so many things to enrich our kids' lives. But are we investing in their future financial success? With Greenlight, you can teach your kids financial literacy skills like earning, saving, and investing. And this investment costs less than that after-school treat. Start prioritizing their financial education and future today with a risk-free trial at greenlight.com/Wondery. greenlight.com/Wondery.
Okay, let's move on. Category 7, Man in the Mirror. This category asks a fairly simple question. Did this person like their reflection, yes or no? This is not about beauty, but rather a question of self-confidence versus self-judgment. I'm going to go hot take here. I think he didn't.
You think so?
I think he feels very, very awkward being 6'9". And he talks about it, and I don't think he ever totally comes to terms with his own genetics. You would think very attractive, very self-confident, very self-assured, like inside and out. This man seems very sure of himself.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's covering something up. My 2 points of evidence are where he talks about, I've seen him in an interview with Diane Sawyer, talking about how he was bullied for being, so tall.
I was really uncomfortable. I was the tallest person in the world, as far as I could tell. Older kids chased me home and beat me up. I don't think there's any question that I did have a kind of withdrawal.
I think it also is evident in the inability to commit to another relationship. I think that is chain-smoking marriages, hold on to your butts. I think that there is something that tells me there's deeper insecurities than you would otherwise believe. And I do think he feels separate and apart from people in a lot of ways. I think that whole introversion fantasy says something. And now I think you can be a confident introvert, but that's my hot take here. I'm actually saying he does not like his reflection, despite being the 39th most beautiful person of 1994.
I mean, I think that alone, if I looked in the mirror and I was Michael Crichton, I would be giving you, I would be serving looks in that mirror. I'd be like,
you'd be ducking down to look in that mirror. So you're going confident, yes. You're not.
I'm going to say yes. I think absolutely, if we see anything in him, I think he was very confident in his mental processes for how to understand the world around him.
Yeah.
I think he was very steadfast in his ability to identify who he was and what his purpose was on this earth. I think there was a lot to be proud of. So I disagree with the idea that there were, I can imagine there might be some insecurities, obviously, with the, especially with relationships.
Yeah,
I could see that being a bit of a chink in the armor, but I'm
going hot take, and I don't think I'm right.
I'm happy that you have a hot take. I think we can disagree. I can't imagine him looking in the mirror and being like, oh God, what did you do with your life? What an idiot. God.
Talk about wrong turns.
Where did I go?
It was a failure. I should have just been a humble doctor.
What a loser. God, no way. I don't think he did. So I disagree.
I guess the story I'm telling here is that the awkwardness of the body, which I think has some insecurity, plus the challenge in trying to stay grounded with your own success looks burdensome to me and bears out in interpersonal relationships. So I don't think he likes his reflection.
Do you think everyone you've had, every celebrity you've talked about has been burdened by their success? I'm just curious.
I don't know, John. That's a great question. I think yes, on some level.
I think imagine that it would have to be that way.
Because everybody I know who's uber confident is also hiding inside a tremendous amount of fear, because that's how the human condition works. We're all born with deep instincts of fear and insecurity and a need to feel like we belong. And this is what it means to be human. The reason I'm going this direction with Michael Crichton is that I think that there's actually more evidence for insecurity than you might otherwise think. This question in this category is always somewhere in the middle.
I could see him being the type of person who achieves something great, and then maybe he's happy for a day or two, and the shine wears off immediately, which is kind of how I am with, with some things in my life.
I mean, actually, that's an interesting point as it relates to Michael Crichton, because I do think that as his success went on and as he became somebody who could talk to American-Japanese relationships or could talk about evolution and our relationship to extinction, that him feeling compelled to weigh in on climate is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, scientific question facing humanity right now. So I do think that part of that is I have a greater purpose. I, Michael Crichton, have been the guy who has talked to people about pandemics and has told stories about the big issues of the time. I got to weigh in on this one, and I have a hot take. It ain't as bad as we think.
Yeah.
That kind of makes sense to me in terms of progression. I'm sure he thought he was doing a good thing. I'm very confident he was telling himself a story. I'm a good person, and the world needs me to do this.
I think he was 10 toes down on that.
No question.
Into his last day.
Yeah. And probably liked his reflection, but I'm saying no. So you said yes. I said no. Agree to disagree. Okay. Category 8, cocktail, coffee, cannabis. This is where we ask, which one would we most want to do with our dead celebrity? So he's a scuba diver, and I really like the idea of traveling internationally with Michael Crichton. So I love the face you're making, like gross.
Don't talk about it. Ugh, nobody wants to hear all that.
That's probably true. It does have like a braggadocious quality to it.
So annoying. It's like talking about your dreams. When it's like, nobody cares where you went in Turkey. I don't give a shit.
No, but I want to go to Turkey and have a drink. Or I wrote somewhere in Tahiti, a coconut mojito is what I went with.
Hello.
Yeah, white rum, coconut cream, lime, mint, soda water. I do like the idea of going on a dive somewhere in the South Pacific, seeing the coral reef garden and the beauty and mystery of sea life, and then getting out of the water, going back to the tiki bar and having I love the face you're making. You're like getting disgusted here.
No, it's great. It's all great. You telling me about your travels.
It's not what I want is the opportunity to have a step out of the world conversation with Michael Crichton in an exotic locale with white sand beaches and sunshine.
What is the exotic locale doing for you?
Freedom to talk. Okay. Right. Certainly, I want to try and dig in on my theory here that what he's done in questioning the science of global warming tactically is off, because he's dug in and he's really stubborn.
Yeah.
But I want to approach him with the idea of like, is your main point about catastrophism? And let's talk about that, because you do understand story and you do understand why people are attracted to certain kinds of stories that we tell around science, technology, and the planet. I would be curious to get at the emotional touch points of why we are drawn to that, why human nature is drawn to that, and what he would have to say about that, separate and apart from the particulars of climate science, right? Plus, I like the idea of a little bit of scene setting with, let's remind ourselves of the wonders of the natural world before having that conversation, because that is where some of this is coming from. Some of our paranoia is derived from our spiritual connection, our love of the natural world and things that may threaten it. I feel like it would be good to prime the conversation that way.
Maybe knock him off that high horse.
Well, we need to be sitting down, because it's got to be literally a more level.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You need some sort of hammock, chair.
Hammocks. I like it.
Hammock
yeah.
situation.
Michael, you get in that hammock and we're going to talk. I like this. This is painting a scene here.
Yeah.
All right. So what did you go with here?
I went with cannabis.
All right.
Yeah,
Tell
because
me
I have
why.
a different desire.
Okay.
Because we need some privacy.
Mm.
Because I want to collaborate with him on a new idea for a book.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to storyboard it.
Yeah.
I want to do some yes-anding.
Yeah.
I want to do some trust falls.
Some what-ifing?
Yeah, let's do some what-ifing. I
Yeah.
think that would be so much fun with him. And I feel like
I
he
love this.
would sort of, with the cannabis, would be able to think beyond the edge of the map, in that way.
Yeah, yeah.
And it really sort of unlock that what-if switch
Yeah.
in him. So I'd like, what if we throw out ideas? Like, what if we engineered memory?
How engineered memory? Say more. Okay, what other ideas did you have here?
Oh, I just was throwing out ideas. What if robots started craving male affection and then fought for it?
Yeah. Have you ever collaborated with somebody creatively on a project outside of this podcast?
Right now,
outside of this podcast.
No, not really.
I think you would be good at it, actually.
I love a situation where we're just crisscross applesauce.
Yeah. Well, I brainstorm, and I've had the experience of feeding off of somebody else's ideas and oh yeah. And then there's a kind of accumulation of enthusiasm and possibility. When you can take all of that creative potential and turn it into actual output and something real, something that's on the page or on the screen or recorded in an audio or whatever, it is about as exciting as anything.
That's sort of divergent thinking. We're
Yeah.
just sort of throwing ideas out there. It's what if ancient DNA had messages?
Right.
And it's just
Yeah,
just
yeah.
throw it out there. I would love to do a what if situation with him and see what his process is. That's always been fascinating to me. I couldn't find a lot about his process. I know that he did lock himself in a separate house on the property. I want a taste of that.
I love that. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think we've arrived. The final category, the Vanderbeek, named after James Vanderbeek, who famously said in Varsity Blues,
I don't want your life.
In that Varsity Blues scene, James makes a judgment that he does not want a certain kind of life based on a single characteristic. So here, John and I will form a rebuttal to anyone skeptical of how Michael Crichton lived. I think that there are two things in the counter-argument bucket, and feel free to add to these. One is the stain. Are we going to remember him with a kind of crooked eye because of his turn towards climate skepticism? It really does make you just look askance at the rest of his legacy. And then the second thing is chain smoking marriages. It sounds like he has friends. He and Spielberg were tight. Sounds like he and Sean Connery were buds.
Yeah, he was in two of his movies.
Yeah. Rising Sun and Great Train Robbery.
Mhm.
And they spoke fondly of each other. But it's not clear to me that this guy feels connected with other people exactly.
It's at least in that romantic department. It seemed like that was a struggle, obviously.
Right.
And we have data.
I mean, I think he's invited into interesting intellectual rooms.
Oh, yeah.
So I think he's probably got community. But I do think that kind of dysfunctional piece there in terms of what am I contributing and what am I taking away from my loving relationships? I don't know. It's an argument against. Everything else is pretty. Should we just go right for the argument for?
I was just going to say, I think, I'm sure he was a bit tortured with that brain.
Yeah, seems like it.
I think it would be hard to fall asleep.
Yeah.
Brain going on and just
oh, that's
things
interesting.
clicking.
Like a busy mind.
I think he had a busy mind. I could see him feeling unsettled a lot
Yeah.
and having this sort of anxious apartness from others in the world because his mind was just constantly working on these ideas or challenging. I think he wants us to be so skeptical of things.
Yeah.
But I don't know if he realizes how exhausting that is as a
Right,
human
right,
being to be a skeptic of it. It's exhausting.
Yeah,
Let me just let me just hear something and be like, okay, I agree, fine, and not have to worry about whether or not that is my moral obligation to investigate everything. That's exhausting. So I could see that his life sounded a little exhausting.
I guess he did have a meditation practice.
Yeah, and maybe that slowed him down and that gave him a little bit of ease.
Yeah.
But that's how I imagine his brain to be, was just sort of always firing and questioning. And I mean, that just sounds a little torturous to me. So I could see that being a case against.
Okay, well, let's make the case for. What is the number one thing you want here? I mean, I sort of said earlier, he's more of my secret hero than I realized.
I think he's a lot of people's hero.
I think so too.
Just a lot of people's favorite author.
Why is that? Favorite author, but just because you can write a great book doesn't make your life desirable or enviable. I mean, I think we want to be seen as creative, right?
Mm-hmm.
It is a validating thing. I mean, is that the number one thing?
I think is it also that he was just so unique. I think people want to feel unique. You look at this person who is, I mean, you talk about being a self-made, brilliant person with that bank account. It just seems like that
It's not just the bank account, though. I mean, I do think that I like what you have to say about him being unique. You have to imagine he felt blessed on some level. If he does have a kind of spiritual pursuit that we kind of get from travels, my instinct is to think that he is asking deeper questions about the nature of the universe. I want to believe he's doing that with some quality of gratitude, that I have been given a certain set of gifts and opportunities in life that few people get. You know, what does it all mean? Kind of, I guess, maybe related to that, I do like the eclectic interests he has. That's something I absolutely want in my life.
Right, this sort of Renaissance man sort of vibe that he had, which I think also George Clooney said he was a Renaissance man.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's very attractive to me.
I also think even though we keep hitting on, or I keep hitting on this sort of stain of how he communicates around climate, I do think that being a science communicator, that is of service. If you can do that well. If you can say there's a bunch of smart people in the lab who are getting together at conferences and are putting out research, and some of it is full of jargon and it's complicated, but I'm going to tell you a story that helps you understand what this thing is and why it may or may not be important to you. That is a service to society, to culture, to humanity.
Absolutely. Especially in democratic societies, it's important. It's a discipline itself. He really nailed it.
Yeah. I mean, well, mostly. He got us to think about things that we probably ought to think about.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean?
Made it accessible.
Even Jurassic Park, which in a funny way we haven't talked as much about, that movie and that story connects some really interesting things. Extinction is largely irreversible. What if it wasn't? But there's also an effort to help us understand the vastness of geologic time. That gets you thinking about the deep forces in the planet and the deep forces in nature and like what we are capable of doing with our godlike powers as humans.
Right.
I mean, that is a subtext of a lot of his work.
Yeah, he's getting you to think, and I think it's amazing that as a person who has that ability to sort of be a thought leader, which I hate that phrase, but I think it's
but it's applicable here.
Yeah, it's an amazing quality to have, and he hated the term futurist, but he in many ways was.
Well, I hate that term too because
because you can't.
Well, because it makes it sound like somebody is more knowledgeable about the future than you are. That's a point he makes in that speech you shared me. It's like, nobody knows more about the future than I do necessarily. But I do think that people who can engage in a certain level of divergent thinking and expand your possibilities of what could happen, that's valuable. If that's what a futurist is, he is that. He's expanding your possibilities of what could be true.
Yeah.
You know, not what will be.
So it's nice to know that he was not only this handsome smarty pants, but he was also of service to people.
I think that's the point.
Which is a very nice thing to sort of seek in myself as well.
Totally. The best version of us, John, is always when we're of service.
When we're of service, yeah. Happiness is the byproduct of being useful to other people.
Yes.
So he's really shown us what that looks like a grand way.
Yeah.
You know, so it's unattainable for someone like me.
Right.
But at least...
And me, and most of us. Right. Yeah.
But I just think that it's a really great model.
And a reminder of that truth, that even if we're not 6'9" best-selling authors with a degree from Harvard, when we are of service and are trying to help people, reminding them of the uncertainty of the future in a good way, that is actually a great thing that all of us can do.
And we should be doing it in small ways.
Exactly. And we should feel validated for doing it in small ways, too.
Right. Yeah. That's the preferred way.
If we were to summarize the points, I do think it is both the creative journey, his skills as a science communicator, but also reminding all of us about the possibilities for the world and therefore for ourselves, which is being of service ultimately. So with that, James Vanderbeek, I'm Michael Crichton, and you want my life. Before we get to the speed round, if you enjoyed this episode of Famous and Gravy, if you're enjoying our show and you have your phone in your hand right now, please share this with a friend. It helps us to grow our podcast. All right, John, speed round. If people enjoyed this episode of Famous and Gravy, what other episodes from our archives might they like?
I'm going to say Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Wow, okay. Love that one. Any particular reason?
I just think as an actor, he was kind of chaos on the screen like Crichton was on the page, you know?
Yeah,
So
I like that. There's a lot
also-
of divergent interests and a sort of eclectic taste.
He was just sort of a visionary.
I love it. So that is episode 74, The Masterclass Act, Philip Seymour Hoffman. I'm going to go with a more recent episode. I'm just going to choose episode 97, Time Pilgrim, Kurt Vonnegut. I know that you're not a sci-fi nerd, but great science fiction does a service for us, and that Kurt Vonnegut did a service for us in a way that Michael Crichton also might have done a service for us. And sci-fi authors deserve a little bit more love. So
love that.
Episode 97, Time Pilgrim, Kurt Vonnegut. Here's a little preview for the next episode of Famous and Gravy. He won an Academy Award in 2018, the first African-American to win for Best Animated Short.
I want to say Betty White, but I think
It's not Betty White. She didn't win for being the first African-American to win. That's a good guess. It's good. Not, actually, that's an awful guess. That's an awful guess. Famous and Gravy listeners, we love hearing from you. If you want to reach out with a comment, question, or to participate in our opening quiz, email us at hello@famousandgravy.com. In our show notes, we include all kinds of links, including to our website and our social channels. Famous and Gravy is created by Amit Kapoor and me, Michael Osborne. Thanks so much to John Watts for guesting on this episode. It was produced by Evan Scherer with assistance from Jacob Weiss. Original music by Kevin Strang. Thanks. See you next time. Follow Famous and Gravy on the Wondery app. You can listen to more episodes early and ad-free right now by joining Wondery Plus in the Wondery app, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify. Before you go, tell us about yourself by completing a short survey at Wondery.com/survey.
Find yourself looking for a new job or change in career? Monster.com is here to help. We are not only here to bring you job postings, but also AI interview prep and salary tools, expert career advice, and top-notch resume services. We've got everything you need to land your perfect job fit. Discover the magic of finding the ideal job with Monster.com. Your future starts now. Visit Monster.com today. Your next job opportunity is just a click away.